The Bloodline Curse: How to Identify Generational Curses. Trigger warning. This video series covers disturbing and very serious topics. Full legal disclaimer in the video description below. Welcome back. I'm Adeline Atlas, and this is Occult Bloodlines: Families of Ritual Power. In today's video, we begin a three-part breakdown of one of the most misunderstood but powerful forces operating in spiritual lineage systems: the Bloodline Curse. Not metaphorical, not psychological, but real, intentional, and often ritualized contracts that are active across generations. Contracts that block success, siphon energy, destroy relationships, and destabilize your physical and emotional health. In Part 1, we're focusing solely on how to identify whether a bloodline curse is active in your life. Because before you can break anything, you must first admit it exists and be able to trace its patterns with precision. A bloodline curse is not just something a jealous person whispers once. It's not necessarily witchcraft done by a stranger. It is more often a spiritually binding structure, tied into the family line itself, sometimes cast by an ancestor, sometimes inherited through rituals you never knew were happening. These curses are often reinforced by repetition. They get stronger the more they're fulfilled, and they rarely appear as direct attacks. Instead, they show up as patterns, cycles that repeat over and over, sometimes so seamlessly that they become invisible. The job of today's video is to help you see them clearly. Let's begin with one of the most consistent red flags: repeating patterns of relationship collapse. If every romantic partnership in your lineage ends in sudden betrayal, abandonment, cheating, or even death, this is not random, especially if these patterns occur at the same life stage or under similar circumstances. For example, every woman in the maternal line is left after the birth of her second child, or every man in the paternal line marries quickly, then divorces by year 3. When the details repeat, down to the age, timing, or method of separation, that's a signal of ritualized heart field disruption. It may have started as a trauma imprint, but once anchored in the field and repeated through generations, it forms a contractual curse, one that blocks love, destroys emotional bonds, and keeps spiritual union out of reach. In many cases, these relational blocks are not just about sabotage. They serve a spiritual function. In some occult families, relationships are seen as energetic liabilities. Marriage, children, or deep partnership may threaten the original contracts by allowing outside influence into the bloodline. So the line is cursed to stay fragmented. In other cases, a specific ancestor made a vow of celibacy, chastity, or heartbreak, and bound the field permanently. If you've ever felt like every relationship starts with promise, only to break in ways you can't explain, especially if this happens in your family line, you may be carrying that vow. A second major indicator of bloodline cursing is chronic financial instability despite consistent effort. This isn't about being lazy or mismanaging money. In fact, some of the hardest working people in ritual bloodlines are the most financially cursed. They build, invest, save, strive, only to lose everything at the last minute. Opportunities vanish, money disappears, legal issues emerge, or windfalls arrive only to be stolen, squandered, or lost in disasters. When financial collapse happens in multiple generations, particularly after major wins or during specific times of year, you are likely looking at a contractual reversal mechanism, a spiritual block that activates once a threshold of success is crossed. Sometimes this curse is tied to guilt. Descendants are punished for an ancestor's ill-gotten wealth. Other times, it's linked to a family vow of poverty, made under duress or to gain religious favor. And in some bloodlines, there's an embedded rule that says, only one may thrive. So if one sibling or cousin gains wealth, another must fall. If you've noticed this pattern, success always followed by sudden failure, or generational prosperity capped by violent loss, it is not just trauma, it is energetic sabotage embedded in the field. The third indicator is physical and emotional degradation concentrated in a branch of the family, especially if it appears cyclical or targets a specific gender. This includes chronic illness, autoimmune conditions, infertility, mental illness, or pain syndromes that doctors can't fully explain. Bloodline curses are often reinforced through the body, because the body is the easiest vessel for ancestral trauma to hide inside. If your mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother all experienced miscarriages, hysterectomies, or ovarian cancer at the same age, that is not a statistical coincidence. It is a womb curse, often enacted to block reproductive potential, magical strength, or generational healing. In male lines, this can manifest as unexplained heart attacks, substance abuse, sudden death, or neurological disorders that appear in midlife. The curse doesn't need to kill, it just needs to disrupt legacy, prevent healing, prevent rebuilding. If the body breaks, the spiritual contract can't be rewritten. That's the logic of the curse. The fourth sign is dream architecture and spiritual invasion. If you experience the same nightmares year after year, or if you share dreams with family members, especially dreams involving graves, dark houses, or being chased, this can be a sign that your dream field is under spiritual siege. Repeating nightmares of dead relatives, drowning, being trapped in family homes, or reliving trauma you didn't consciously experience, these aren't just bad dreams. They're energetic programs. Dreams are the storage layer for soul-level contracts. They're also the place where curses are often reinforced, especially by relatives who've passed, but remain bound to the family line. Bloodline curses often function through nighttime reactivation. The same scene may replay on birthdays, death anniversaries, or during eclipse windows. The dream may involve family members participating in rituals, or you being forced into a role, or a sensation of being watched. These are not psychological. They're evidence that your spiritual field is being accessed in the subconscious, especially if you wake up exhausted, angry, or physically sick. The curse may be renewing itself through your consent in dreams, even if that consent is unconscious. Another pattern is what I call life derailment after success. You achieve a goal, get a job, find love, move to a better environment, and suddenly everything collapses. Your health breaks down. You're betrayed. An accident occurs? In cursed families, success often activates the backlash. These curses aren't triggered by failure. They're triggered by progress. The contract says, you may survive, but you will not thrive. If you've lived this pattern, build, rise, collapse, repeat, it is likely that success itself was coded as a trigger for energetic punishment. The higher you go, the more aggressively the field pulls you back. A subtler but equally serious sign is internalized fear of your own power. If every time you try to express your creativity, sexuality, spiritual voice, or intuitive gifts, you are flooded with guilt, fear, or physical symptoms, this may be a curse designed to prevent your activation. Many occult families bind power carriers early, especially if the child has healing or sight gifts that would threaten the ritual infrastructure. The field is coded to associate spiritual expression with punishment. So even after breaking free from family control, you sabotage yourself. You delay. You shrink. You numb. This isn't self-doubt. It's programming. Some bloodline curses are even designed to create generational opposition, meaning your healing becomes dangerous to the rest of the line. You try to raise your vibration, cut cords, or explore new spiritual paths, and suddenly your family turns on you. Not with reasoned opposition, but with irrational rage, financial threats, or mysterious illnesses that follow their attacks. This is a boomerang curse, where healing triggers retaliation not from individuals, but from the curse itself. The contract is written to protect its own survival, and your awakening threatens its existence. Still, another major sign is lifelong bad luck that shows up as more than coincidence. Repeated car accidents, always living near fires or floods, being present at mass trauma events, or experiencing the same kind of betrayal over and over despite changing cities, jobs, or relationships. These are all potential indicators that a bloodline curse is running in the background. These types of curses are often layered into the environmental field, creating energetic magnets that draw you toward misaligned timelines, toxic people, or dangerous environments. It's not your choices, it's your resonance being hijacked by inherited contracts. The final category is what I call containment backlash, the strange phenomenon where every attempt to go no contact with the family is met with sudden chaos. You try to block a parent, and you lose your job. You stop answering a sibling's calls, and you get sick. You move away, and your car breaks down the same week. These are not accidents. These are punishment triggers coded into the spiritual network of the family. The curse is often written to punish separation. This ensures compliance, through fear. The goal of the contract is to keep you entangled, not always physically, but energetically. If any of these signs have felt familiar, especially if you've seen these same patterns across multiple generations or multiple family members who never even met each other, then it's time to stop calling it coincidence or personal trauma. It is most likely a structured, intentional bloodline curse, passed down, reinforced, and reactivated every time someone lives the same story. You do not need to know who cast it. You don't even need to know why, yet. But you do need to acknowledge that something has been riding on your back, siphoning your energy, and steering your life toward predetermined outcomes. And that awareness is the first cut into its power. Hi, I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and what you just watched is part of my signature program, the Chosen One series inside School of Soul. This series is not just a course, it's a blueprint for those who know they were different from the start. The black sheep, the scapegoat, the truth teller, the cycle breaker. Inside, you'll discover the family roles playbook, the golden child, the scapegoat, the enabler, the lost child, and how to finally step out of the part you were cast in without consent. How the black sheep becomes the goat, turning rejection into radical transformation and leadership. How to break generational curses and rewrite ancestral contracts so the pain stops with you. And how to recognize and escape modern forms of spiritual and technological targeting, from gang stalking to synthetic synchronicity. This isn't just about survival. It's about awakening, about reclaiming your voice, your lineage, and your destiny as one of the chosen ones. Click the link below to access the full series now, because the role ends the moment you decide it does, and the real script begins with you.